The Grand Synod of the Guardian Dominion was not merely a room. It was a cavernous testament to 10,000 cycles of undisputed galactic supremacy, a hollowed-out geode within the crust of a moon that orbited the Dominion's throne world, lit only by the bioluminescent fungi cultivated in the vaulted ceilings and the harsh, sterile glow of the tactical hololiths hovering above the obsidian central table. The air was thick, recycled and scented with the burning incense of sulfur and iron, a smell that the Ethel Guardians found comforting, for it smelled of industry and war. High Chancellor Calith sat at the head of the obsidian table, his chitinous carapace gleaming under the pale light, his compound eyes twitching with a mixture of exhaustion and a primal, buried fear that he dared not show to the assemblage of warlords, scientists, and diplomats before him. Silence reigned in the chamber, but it was not the silence of peace. It was the suffocating silence of a predator holding its breath before a strike, or perhaps the silence of prey realizing the trap had already snapped shut. The tactical display in the center of the room dominated their attention, a swirling vortex of orange and red data points representing the edge of their sovereign space, the border region known as the Abyssal Rim, a place where the starlight grew thin and the fabric of reality was rumored to fray. There, on the edge of the known, a signal had appeared, a ghost in the machine, a shadow upon the sensors that defied all logic, all physics, and all known configurations of Dominion naval architecture. They called it the Void Walker in the lower decks, whispered in hushed tones by engineers who feared that naming it would summon it. But the intelligence reports, gathered from the broken transmissions of pirate fleets and the frantic distress calls of fringe colonies, gave it a different name, a name that tasted like ash and thunder in the mouths of those who spoke it. The humans called it the Dauntless Asterisk, but to the galaxy, to the whispers in the dark, it was simply the end. Calith shifted his weight, the heavy ceremonial robes of his office rustling like dry leaves, and looked at General Vrax, the supreme commander of the Dominion's armada. Vrax was a creature of scar tissue and aggression, his mandibles constantly clicking in a rhythm of suppressed violence, but even Vrax looked diminished today, his usual bluster replaced by a stony, unblinking stare fixed upon the holographic anomaly. The anomaly was not moving with the aggression of a raiding party or the stealth of a spy. It was moving with the inexorable, terrifying certainty of a tectonic plate, a slow, grinding advance that ignored the navigational hazards of the rim, plowing through asteroid fields and radiation storms as if they were mist. "It does not hail us," Vrax said, his voice a gravelly rasp that echoed off the crystalline walls. "It does not broadcast a transponder code. It does not deviate its course. It is on a direct vector for the prime system, and by my calculations, based on its current sublight velocity, it will breach the inner defense perimeter in 3 standard rotations." The general paused, his clawed hand hovering over the controls of the hololith, zooming in on the fuzzy, distorted image of the intruder. It was massive, a monolithic slab of dark metal that seemed to absorb the light around it, devoid of the elegant curves and glowing engines that characterized Ethel Guardian ships. It was a brute thing, a flying mountain of industrial anger, scarred by eons of cosmic dust, and perhaps the weapons of civilizations long dead. The energy readings are impossible. The output from its rear thrusters alone exceeds the total power generation of our capital shipyards. If that is a weapon, Chancellor, we are not looking at an invasion. We are looking at an execution. A ripple of unease went through the council, the gathered dignitaries shifting in their seats, their pheromones spiking the air with the sour scent of anxiety. Science Minister Alara, a slender and intellectual female with iridescent wing casings, stood up, her voice trembling slightly but clear. "It is not just the energy output, General. It is the signature of the hull. The spectrographic analysis suggests materials that do not exist in the periodic table of this galaxy. Neutronium alloys, collapsed matter, things that require the pressure of a dying star to forge. This ship, this legend, it is not merely a warship. It is a technological impossibility. To build such a thing would require the resources of a dozen systems. To fly it. To fly it requires a mastery of gravitational mechanics that we have only theorized about in our most abstract mathematics." She looked around the room, meeting the gaze of the warriors and the politicians. "We call the humans upstarts. We call them short-lived and chaotic. But this is the work of gods or demons, and we are planning to shoo. Tea at it? We must shoot at it," Vrax roared, slamming his fist onto the table, cracking the obsidian surface. "It is an act of war to enter the prime system without authorization. The humans have been silent for 50 cycles ever since the border skirmishes ceased. Now they return with this behemoth, It is a challenge. It is a statement. If we do not meet it with fire, we lose our standing. The vassal systems will smell weakness. The dominion will fracture. The general turned to Caliph, his eyes burning. Chancellor, give the order, mobilize the Grand Fleet. We will meet them in the debris field of the outer giants. We will overwhelm them with numbers. No ship is invincible. It has engines, it has a hull, it has a crew. It can bleed. Caliph closed his eyes for a moment, letting the darkness of the room wash over him. He was old enough to remember the first contact with humanity, a confusing, fumbling affair that had ended in a stalemate. The humans had been strange then, physically weak, lacking natural armor or claws, relying entirely on their machines. They had seemed fragile, emotional, prone to internal bickering. But there had always been something unnerving about them, a certain cold, calculated determination that surfaced when they were backed into a corner. They did not fight for glory, they fought for survival, and they fought with a terrifying, pragmatic efficiency. And now they had sent this, the dauntless asterisk. The stories said it had appeared in the war against the insectoid swarms of the galactic south, a conflict the Dominion had watched from afar. The stories said the asterisk Dauntless had not fired a shot, but had simply flown through the swarm, its shields vaporizing anything that touched them, breaking the enemy formation by sheer, unstoppable mass. It was the ultimate psychological weapon, a ship that didn't need to fight because its very existence proved the futility of resistance. Peace, Vrax, Caliph said, his voice soft but carrying the absolute weight of his authority. We will mobilize the fleet, yes, but we will not fire unless fired upon. We will form a blockade. We will hail them on every frequency, in every language, with every mathematical constant. We need to know why they are here before we commit suicide by attacking a vessel made of collapsed stars. He stood up, the movement signaling the end of the debate, though the tension in the room remained thick enough to choke on. This meeting is adjourned. Prepare the defenses, and pray to the ancestors that the humans have come to talk, for if they have come to conquer, I fear we have already lost. The transition from the sterile silence of the council chamber to the chaotic reality of the fleet mobilization was jarring. The space around the Prime System's sun became a hive of frantic activity, thousands of ships pouring out of space docks and warp gates, their engines painting streaks of blue and violet against the black canvas of the void. The Dominion fleet was majestic, a shimmering sea of gold and white vessels, sharp-edged and predatory, bristling with plasma cannons and missile batteries. They were the apex of Guardian engineering, capable of glassing planets and breaking armadas. Yet as they formed up in the outer orbit of the gas giant Moloch, waiting for the arrival of the human vessel, they felt small. The sensors began to scream long before the visual confirmation arrived. Gravitational waves washed over the fleet, rocking the smaller frigates, setting off alarms, confusing navigation computers. Space itself seemed to bow and buckle, groaning under a weight it was never meant to bear. And then it arrived. It did not drop out of hyperspace with a flash of light. It simply faded into reality, as if it had always been there and the universe was only just now remembering to render it. The Dauntless was darker than the void, a silhouette that blocked out the stars, a jagged, brutalist spearhead of metal that stretched for kilometers. It had no visible bridge, no glowing exhaust ports, no recognizable weapons blisters. It was a solid, seamless construct of matte black, absorbing the active scans of the Dominion fleet like a sponge. It was vast, so vast that it had its own gravity well, pulling the dust of the ring system toward it in a slow, swirling dance. The Dominion flagship, the asterisk pride of Ethelgard, was a leviathan in its own right, a city in space, yet beside the human vessel it looked like a toy, a fragile trinket of glass and pride floating next to a monolith of eternity. On the bridge of the asterisk pride, High Chancellor Caliph stood by the viewport, his hands clasped behind his back, his heart hammering against his ribs. The silence on the bridge was absolute. Even General Vrax was silent, his mandibles slack, his eyes wide as he beheld the scale of the intruder. The human ship was not just a ship, it was a geography. Its surface was textured with canyons and ridges, massive structures that could be habitation blocks or weapon capacitors, indistinguishable in their immensity. "Hail them," Caliph whispered, his voice sounding thin in the recycled air. "Open all channels." The communications officer, a young male whose hands shook over his console, nodded and keyed the sequence. "Channel open, Chancellor, broad-spectrum transmission, audio and visual." "This is High Chancellor Caliph of the Guardian Dominion," he spoke into the pickup, trying to inject steel into his voice. "You have entered sovereign space. You are in violation of the Galactic Concordat. Identify yourself and state your intentions, or we will be forced to view your presence as an act of aggression." Static hissed through the speakers, a cold, empty sound like the wind blowing over a graveyard. Then a tone. A single, pure, resonant tone that seemed to vibrate in the very bones of the crew. The static cleared and a voice emerged. It was not the guttural roar of a warrior or the synthesized hiss of an AI. It was a human voice, calm, weary, and impossibly clear. It sounded old. Chancellor Calith, the voice said. This is Captain Elias Thorne of the United Earth Vessel Dauntless *. We received your warnings. We apologize for the disruption to your traffic. We do not intend aggression. We request permission to maintain current orbit for 48 standard hours. After that, we will depart. Vrax stepped forward, unable to contain himself. Depart. You invade our home system, disrupt our gravity wells, panic our population, and you ask to park. Explain yourself, human. Why is a warship of this magnitude here? What is your target? There was a pause on the line, a silence that felt heavy with unspoken thoughts. We are not a warship, General, Captain Thorne replied, his voice maintaining that maddening, placid evenness. And we have no target. We are an engineering vessel. We are here because your star, the star you call Ethel, is screaming. The bridge crew exchanged confused glances. Science Minister Alara hurried to her sensor station, her fingers flying over the holographic interface. Screaming, our star is stable. It is in the main sequence. We have monitored it for. She stopped. Her face, usually pale, turned a sickly shade of gray. Chancellor, I am reading. By the void, deep layer scans, neutrino emissions from the core. They are chaotic. Fluctuating wildly. How did we miss this? Because you were looking at the light, not the heart. Thorne's voice came back as if he were standing in the room with them. Your star has been infected. A parasitic microsingularity, likely a remnant from the war in heaven, drifting through the galactic core for millions of years. It was caught in your star's gravity well 3 months ago. It is eating the core from the inside out. In 6 days, your star will not go supernova. It will simply collapse. It will vanish, and your system will freeze in the dark. The horror of the statement hung in the air, a physical weight. The dominion, the fleets, the politics, the borders, all of it rendered meaningless in a single sentence. Calith felt his knees weaken. He looked at the screen, at the massive, dark shape of the dauntless *. And you, Calith stammered. You are here to watch. No, Thorne said. We are here to perform surgery. The concept was absurd, surgery on a star. The arrogance of it, the sheer, blinding hubris of the humans. And yet, looking at the ship that blocked out the stars, Calith felt a strange, illogical hope. Surgery with a ship. The dauntless * is not a ship in the way you understand it, Thorne explained, his tone shifting, becoming more technical, more professional. It is a stellar manipulation platform. We are equipped with gravimetric lances and containment fields capable of isolating the singularity. We can extract it. But the process is delicate. It requires us to enter the corona. It requires us to lower your planetary shields to allow for heat dissipation. If we fail, the result is the same, total system collapse. If we succeed, you buy another 1 billion years. The choice is yours, Chancellor. We will not act without your consent. We are not conquerors. We are neighbors. The debate that followed was short, brutal, and desperate. Vrax argued that it was a trick, a Trojan horse to get them to lower their shields. Alara argued that the science, while terrifying, matched the data she was now seeing. The star was dying. The symptoms were there, hidden in the noise, masked by the star's natural luminosity. The humans had seen what the Dominion had been too arrogant to look for. Calith listened to them both, but his eyes never left the viewport. He looked at the dauntless *, hanging there like a suspended judgment. The humans had the power to destroy them. If that ship could manipulate gravity to extract a singularity, it could crush their fleet into a ball of scrap metal the size of a fist. They didn't need to lie. General Vrax, sta. And down the fleet, Calith ordered, his voice finding a new strength. Lower the planetary shields, divert all power to the civilian infrastructure to handle the gravitational shear. Chancellor, Vrax protested, this is madness. This is survival, Calith snapped. Captain Thorne, you have our consent, save our son. Acknowledged, Chancellor, dauntless moving to engage. We recommend you dim your sensors. This is going to be bright. The maneuver that followed was something that would be written into the religious texts of the Ethel Guardian people for generations to come. The dauntless * moved. It did not use thrusters that flared. It simply slid through the vacuum, accelerating with a smoothness that belied its gigaton mass. It descended toward the star, a speck of dust against the inferno, yet a speck that refused to burn. As it touched the outer corona, the ship began to change. The matte black hull shifted, panels opening like the petals of a flower made of iron, revealing an inner core of blinding, pulsating blue light. Energy arcs, thick as continents, leaped from the ship to the surface of the sun, creating a tether, a bridge of raw power. On the bridge of the * Pride, the crew watched in awestruck silence as the telemetry came in. The human ship was dumping energy into the star, stabilizing the magnetic fields, holding back the crushing weight of the collapse while simultaneously projecting a needle-thin beam of antigravitons deep into the stellar core. It was an impossibility. It was a feat of engineering that made the pyramids of the ancients look like mud huts. The heat inside the ship must have been unimaginable, yet they held. Hours turned into a day. The Dauntless remained locked in its embrace with the star. The Ethel Guardian fleet drifted, weapons cold, watching the humans fight a war against thermodynamics. There was no politics here, no borders, just a small biological species in a metal box fighting the death of a solar system. Calith found himself praying not to his ancestors, but to whatever gods the humans worshipped, to the spirit of that machine. Then, a pulse. A shockwave of light that blinded the sensors and sent a ripple of radiation washing over the system. The dauntless asterisk recoiled, pushed back by a violent ejection of stellar matter. From the core of the star, something was pulled free, a tiny, impossibly black sphere held in a net of blue energy. The parasite, the singularity, the Dauntless had it. The ship turned, its hull glowing cherry red from the thermal stress, and accelerated away from the star, dragging the singularity with it, out toward the deep void, away from the planets, away from the fleet. Target extraction complete, Thorne's voice returned, sounding strained, breathless. Containment fields holding at 90%. We are moving to a safe distance to detonate the payload. Detonate, Alara whispered. You cannot destroy a singularity. We can if we feed it to itself, Thorne replied. Watch. Far out in the darkness, beyond the orbit of the furthest moon, the Dauntless released its prize. The blue net collapsed. The singularity flared, consuming the energy fed to it, and for a microsecond, a new star was born. A brilliant, violent explosion of Hawking radiation that shone brighter than the sun, then vanished, leaving nothing but a rapidly dissipating cloud of particles. The star Ethel remained. It was calmer now, its color shifting from a sickly yellow back to a robust, burning gold. The scream was gone. Dauntless Asterisk limped back toward the fleet, its hull scorched, scarred, venting coolant into the void. It looked beaten. It looked magnificent. Calith opened the channel, his voice thick with emotion. Captain Thorne, the Ethel Guardian Dominion, we do not have words. You have saved us. You have saved our history, our future. How can we repay you? What tribute does the Earth require? There was a long silence. Then a soft laugh from the human captain. We don't require tribute, Chancellor. We didn't do this for a reward. We did it because we could, and because, well, we know what it's like to lose a son. The statement hung there, a window into a tragic past that the Ethel Guardians had never known. The humans, the wanderers, the ones who built ships like worlds because perhaps they had lost their own. Captain, Calith said, I request permission to come aboard. I wish to shake the hand of the man who saved my world. Permission granted, Chancellor. Docking Bay 3 is open. Bring your science minister. She might find our engine room interesting. The shuttle ride to the Dauntless was a journey into the belly of a beast. The docking bay was a cavern large enough to house a city. The air inside smelled of ozone, pine, and coffee, strange, organic smells that clashed with the industrial brutalism of the walls. When the airlock cycled, Calith and Alara were met not by soldiers in power armor, but by a group of humans in utilitarian jumpsuits. They were small, soft-skinned, fragile-looking things. Captain Thorne stood at the front, a man with graying hair and a face lined with the stress of command. He held out a hand, and Calith took it, marveling at the warmth, the biological frailty of the creature that commanded the dauntless Asterisk. Welcome aboard, Thorne said. They walked through the ship, and Calith's perception of humanity shattered. He expected a warship. He expected barracks, armories, trophy halls. Instead, he saw parks, great hydroponic gardens stretching for kilometers under artificial sunlight filled with trees from a lost world. He saw schools where human children played in zero-gravity chambers. He saw libraries, vast repositories of physical books and data crystals. The Dauntless was not a destroyer. It was an ark. It was a civilization wrapped in a hull of neutronium. You live here, Alara said, touching the leaf of a fern with wonder. All of you. This is not a military vessel. It is, Thorne corrected gently, but we fight a different kind of war. We don't fight empires, minister. We fight entropy. We fight the dark. Humanity learned a long time ago that conquering the galaxy is pointless if the galaxy itself is dying. They reached the bridge, a surprisingly small room buried deep in the armored heart of the ship. The view screens showed the Ethel Guardian sun, burning steady and true. You said you lost your son, Calith asked quietly. Is that why you built this? Thorne nodded, looking at the display. Saul, it didn't die naturally. It was harvested by something from the void between galaxies. We were too weak to stop it then. We built the Dauntless Asterisk class, 3 of them, to carry what was left of us, and to make sure that what happened to us doesn't happen to anyone else. We track the anomalies. We fix the stars. We are the gardeners of a graveyard trying to bring the flowers back. Calith felt a profound sense of shame. He had prepared his fleet to destroy these people. He had called them upstarts. He had feared their power, never understanding that their power was born of an infinite sorrow and an infinite kindness. "The galaxy fears you," Calith said. "They call this ship the God Killer. They say you are a harbinger of doom." Thorn smiled, a sad, tired smile. "Fear is a good cloak, Chancellor. It keeps people away. It lets us work in peace. If they knew we were just gardeners, they'd try to tax us or enslave us. Let them think we are monsters. As long as the stars stay lit, we don't care what they call us." Suddenly, the red alert klaxon blared, a harsh, rhythmic sound that cut through the philosophical calm. Thorn's expression hardened instantly, the weary gardener vanishing, replaced by the captain. "Report!" he barked. "Captain!" the tactical officer shouted, her hands flying over the console. Long-range sensors picking up a massive energy spike. Sector 7G, the tier. It's opening. Calith looked at the screen. "What tier? We scanned the sector. There is nothing there." "Not in your spectrum," Thorn said, his voice grim. "The anomaly in your sun, it wasn't just drifting. It was a scout, a beacon." "A beacon for what?" Alara asked, fear creeping back into her voice. Thorn turned to the main view screen. "Put it on screen, maximum magnification." The image shifted. Far beyond the heliopause of the Ethel Guardian system, the darkness of space was tearing open. It wasn't a wormhole, it was a wound. A jagged violet rift was clawing its way into reality, and from within it, shapes were emerging, not ships, shapes. Biomechanical horrors, vast as moons, writhing with tentacles of dark energy, their surfaces shifting and screaming. They were the things that ate stars, the things that had consumed Earth. "The harvest," Thorn whispered. "They found us." Calith stared at the horror on the screen. It was an extinction event. The Dominion fleet, for all its glory, would be like gnats against a hurricane. What are they?" "The great silence," Thorn said. "The reason the universe is so empty. They feed on high-energy reactions. They feed on civilizations." He turned to Calith. "Chancellor, you need to evacuate. Take your fastest ships. Go to the galactic core. The density of stars there confuses their sensors. You have maybe 3 hours before they reach the inner system." "Evacuate?" Calith looked at the captain. "My world has 10 billion souls. We cannot evacuate in 3 hours. We will die here." Thorn looked at him, then looked at his crew. There was a silent communication, a nod shared between the humans, a consensus reached without a word. "No," Thorn said softly. "You won't." He turned back to the console. "Helm, lock coordinates on the rift. Engineering, disengage safety interlocks on the main drive. Charge the singularity capacitors to 300%. "Captain," Alara asked, her voice a whisper. "What are you doing?" "We are the Shield Minister," Thorn said, his voice thin. Ding that calm, legendary resonance again. "The Dauntless was built to fix stars, but it was also built to break them." He looked at Calith. "Get to your shuttle, Chancellor. Get your fleet to the dark side of your planet. We are going to close the door." "But to close a rift of that size," Alara did the math in her head, and she gasped. "You would need to detonate the ship. You would need to create a localized vacuum decay. It will kill you, all of you." Thorn smiled. "We are the Dauntless asterisk. We don't die, we just change state." He placed a hand on Calith's shoulder. "Go live, build something better than an empire, build a garden." The journey back to the asterisk Pride was a blur of tears and panic. Calith watched from his bridge as the human ship, the legend, the monster, the savior, turned its back on the sun it had saved and faced the darkness. The rift was widening, the horrors pouring out, a tide of shadow ready to consume the world. The Dauntless accelerated. It did not fire weapons, it became the weapon. Its engines flared with a light that rivaled the sun, pushing the massive hull to relativistic speeds. It flew straight into the maw of the rift, straight into the teeth of the enemy. "All channels," Calith ordered, tears streaming down his chitinous face. "Record this. Let no one look away. Let the galaxy see." The collision was silent in the void, but the light was not. When the Dauntless asterisk hit the center of the rift and detonated its core, the universe turned white. A shockwave of pure causality washed over the system, scrubbing the sensors, resetting the shields, rattling the teeth of every living being on the planet below. When the light faded, the rift was gone. The monsters were gone. The Dauntless was gone. There was only the quiet hum of the Ethel Guardian sun, burning steady and gold in the darkness. Silence reigned on the bridge of the asterisk Pride. Long, agonizing silence. "Did they?" Vrax started, his voice trembling. "Are they dead?" Alara was weeping over her sensors. "No, look, the debris field, it's not debris." Calith looked. Where the Dauntless had been, there was a cloud of shimmering dust expanding slowly. But as the sensors focused, the dust resolved. It wasn't scrap metal, it was seeds, millions of metallic pods, shielded and durable, drifting on the solar winds, each one beaconing a faint signal. Not a distress call, a library code. They didn't just blow up, Alara whispered. They seeded the system. The ship was carrying the genetic and cultural data of Earth. They just scattered it to the winds. Calith watched the glittering cloud, the last testament of the humans. They had sacrificed their ark to save a stranger, and in doing so, they had planted themselves in a new home. They are not dead, Calith said, his voice ringing with a new resolve. They have just arrived. He turned to his council, to the warlords and the politicians who had wanted to fire on the dauntless asterisk. They look small now, petty. Order the fleet to collect the pods, Calith commanded. Every single one, treat them as royal guests. We will build nurseries, we will build libraries. The humans saved our son, we will raise their children. Chancellor, Vrax asked, how do we explain this to the Dominion, to the galaxy? They will ask what happened to the monster ship. Calith looked out at the golden star and the shimmering cloud of hope. Tell them the truth, Calith said. Tell them the monster is gone, tell them the legend is dead. He paused, watching a single pod drift past the viewport, the faint light of a stasis chamber blinking within. And tell them, he added, that the humans are here, and they are under our protection. The galaxy would fear the Ethel Guardian Dominion in time, not for their fleets, but for the strange, brilliant, terrifyingly kind species they had adopted. The species that would grow up under a yellow sun, knowing that their ancestors had been the shield that broke the dark. And one day, Calith knew, a new ship would rise from the shipyards of Ethelgard. It would be named Dauntless Roman II*, and the galaxy would tremble not in fear but in awe.